Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes, and on this, the 50th day of the Trump administration, the White House is touting what it calls 50 days of action, with the president, quote, achieving results for the American people. And that is one way to look at it. But we've seen something else in those first 50 days, something that was captured in this extraordinary moment at the White House today. After Press Secretary Sean Spicer trumpeted a new jobs report showing the jobless rate had ticked down to 4.7%. You might recall that as a candidate, routinely and repeatedly, Donald Trump did not exactly put a lot of stock in the government's jobs numbers.
Don't believe those phony numbers when you hear 4.9 and 5% unemployment. The number's probably 28, 29, as high as 35. In fact, I even heard recently 42%.
Okay, that's not true. But in light of those comments, Spicer was asked, quite reasonably, why would it be that the White House now takes the new job numbers seriously? And Spicer's response, along with the reaction of the journalists in the room, provided a defining moment to mark this president's first 50 days in office.
Does the president believe that this jobs report was accurate and a fair way to measure the economy?
Yeah, I talked to the president prior to this, and he said, to quote him very clearly, they may have been phony in the past, but it's very real now.
Did you hear that laughter? It wasn't just Spicer, it was the reporters too, and it was an acknowledgement of what everyone in that room, almost certainly, although certainly not everyone in this country, has figured out. The White House is full of it, and they know it. And they know the reporters know it, and they don't care. You see, not a single thing that emanates from this White House can ever be immediately believed or granted presumptive authority or assumed to be true. Not one thing. Not what the president says, not what Sean Spicer says, or what officials say, on the record or off the record. Nothing, no matter how serious or how trivial. You simply cannot take any of it at face value. And that is true no matter your politics, or whether you support or oppose this president's agenda. This White House has shown over its first 50 days that at the most fundamental level, BS is part of its DNA. And it started, of course, even before Donald Trump took office. Think back to the very first thing that Donald Trump said publicly in the Oval Office when he met with then President Obama during the transition.
This was a meeting that was going to last for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and we were just going to get to know each other. We had never met each other. I have great respect. The meeting lasted for almost an hour and a half.
It's a total trivial thing, how long the meeting was supposed to last, and yet Trump could not stop himself from lying about it.
Donald Trump mentioned that this was originally supposed to only last 10 to 15 minutes. Is that true? And why would it go on so much longer than that?
The president had allotted more time on his schedule for that meeting than just 10 to 15 minutes.
Now, fast forward to Inauguration Day, day 1 of 50. Remember how it rained that day? Well, it started pretty much right when the president started to speak and continue through his speech. It's something anyone who was there could verify, with one notable exception.
God looked down and he said, we're not going to let it rain on your speech. In fact, when I first started, I said, oh no. First line, I got hit by a couple of drops. And I said, oh, this is too bad, but we'll go right through it. But the truth is that it stopped immediately. It was amazing. And then it became really sunny. Then I walked off and it poured right after I left.
That, too, was just completely made up. Just like Spicer's claim, the crowd at Trump's inauguration was the biggest ever.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
No, not true. On the left is a picture of President Obama's inauguration in 2009. On the right, that photo with far fewer people. That's President Trump's inauguration. And that was just the start. That was day 1 through 4 of the Trump administration's ceaseless assault on the truth. Or, to put it another way.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts.
The alternative facts are used to discuss relatively trivial matters like the size of Donald Trump's win.
People came out and voted like they've never seen before. So that's the way it goes. I guess it was the biggest electoral college win since Ronald Reagan.
Not true. They're also deployed for more serious issues like the absurd claim that anti-Trump protesters are being paid.
Do you sense that there's an organized pushback and people are being paid to protest?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, protesting has become a profession now. They have every right to do that, don't get me wrong, but I think that we need to call it what it is. It's not these organic uprisings that we've seen through the last several decades. The Tea Party was a very organic movement. This has become a very paid AstroTurf type movement.
Alternative facts are even used to gin up anti-immigrant sentiment with lies about refugees and references to terror attacks that never happened.
You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden.
2 Iraqis came here to this country, were radicalized, and they were the masterminds behind the Bowling Green massacre.
There was no Bowling Green massacre. Now, we can't possibly go through all the examples. Huffington Post counted what it said were 100 lies from the Trump team in just the first 36 days, but the lesson of these first 50 days is clear. The White House, the office of the president, has become an unreliable narrator, a source of information that you just cannot trust. And it matters when a president falsely claims that millions are voting illegally, throwing the integrity of the entire electoral system into question, and when an administration misleads the public about contact with Russia, and when, without evidence, the president of the United States accuses his predecessor of illegally wiretapping him, sending Capitol Hill on what, by all accounts, is an absolutely wild goose chase. Today, White House official told the AP the president got that claim from Breitbart News, which had written up a rant from a right-wing radio host. And he'd placed that Breitbart piece in Trump's daily reading pile, the official said, and the president was off. And there's a good chance that's what happened, but of course, it's hard to say because that claim itself comes from a White House official. And as these 50 days have shown, that means none of us should take it at face value.